Hi everyone, it's Nalusha. I hope you guys are doing well and that you're mentally well as well as physically well, keeping fit, going out, and all those good things. Today, I want to talk to you about going from A levels to university because I think this year, unfortunately, with COVID, a lot of you will have missed out on the chance you would have got at school to kind of experience the differences, hear from past students, that kind of thing. So I hope I can provide some insight on what it's like to be at university and kind of what you can do to prepare yourself almost. So I'm going to talk about three things. The first is what actual work is like, so what classes and lectures and all that kind of thing are like, what home learning is like, so assignments, what it's like to actually have to bring your university work home, and how much work should you expect to be doing compared to your A levels. Now, also I want to talk about living by yourself, which I think is probably the biggest thing that university students differ from A-level students, because obviously A-level students, you can still go home and your parents will have a lovely cooked meal for you. Before we get into that, I just wanted to mention I actually had my COVID vaccination last week on Friday, and I just wanted to show you guys my experience and talk to you guys a little bit about what it was like for me. So I recorded a before and after clip just so that you guys could see kind of how I was feeling after it, and also for you guys to notice that, I don't know, you can kind of tell beforehand that I was really nervous getting it because I'd heard so many rumours like, oh, you're gonna get really sick, some people have allergic reactions, all of that kind of thing. And I just wanted to say that I never experienced any of that, and actually the process was so much like a regular jab. I just got the flu jab as well a couple of weeks before this, and it just felt like the same thing. It really didn't feel any different. So I don't know why I was so worried about getting this particular vaccination. So I hope this will help to kind of dispel that fear. Just about to go and get my COVID vaccination, so this is my first vaccination. I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but I'll tell you guys how it goes.
A little later.
So I just had my vaccination. They gave me a little leaflet and a card. I had the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccination. Really not much to say, to be honest. It was just like any other vaccination. They just put it in your arm and then they asked a few questions beforehand, and then you're just kind of good to go after that. So yeah, it went quite well. Okay, so now that you've seen, obviously I came out after and I looked like a lot less stressed and a lot happier actually, and I did feel a lot happier. Now that I've had the vaccination, I feel a lot less worried. I'm in priority group 6, which is why I got the vaccination so early. I do have a pre-existing medical condition that meant that I am vulnerable to getting COVID and bad effects of COVID. So this actually was quite a relief for me to be able to get this vaccination, and I hope that you guys all consider getting it too. Now, the process of getting the vaccination is really, really simple. You get a letter, or at least at the moment the process is that you get a letter, and the letter will tell you to go book online. It's your turn to have the vaccination. So all you do is you go on the NHS website, you book your vaccination, and once it's your turn, you go there with your booking reference number, and they give you a little card that says which vaccination you're going to have and what date you've had your first vaccination, so that when you go for your second one, you show them this, I assume, and they can sort things out from there. Really, all it is you go into a room, somewhat like secondary school vaccinations, and there is someone there with a chair in front of them. You sit on the chair, you get the vaccination, and you leave after doing some admin stuff. So really nothing special there. I really would encourage you guys to get it, if not for yourself, then for those around you. I really, really want to start going out this summer, and I'm sure you guys do too. So I think this is the best way forward. So I hope that gave some insight on the vaccination. I know it can be quite scary reading things on the internet, but this is my first-hand experience having got it myself. My side effects were a headache and feeling a little bit sick on the evening afterwards, but I slept it off, and paracetamol really does help, and it was nothing that paracetamol couldn't solve. So nothing serious at all. Okay, so let's get straight into the video then. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the difference between teaching at university and at A-levels. So I'd say the biggest thing obviously is lectures. Now for maths, lectures are literally, you walk in, there's a room of 400 people just like the movies. You go sit down, the lecturer walk in, they've got their chalk in hand and they just start writing on the blackboards. Yes, in maths we have blackboards. But yeah, and that's for the full 50 minutes. So the structure of lectures for maths at least is that you get a definition, you get a theorem, and then you get a proof, and you might get an example if you're lucky. Lecturers sometimes set exercises for you to do. Those exercises have to be done outside of the lecture. You don't have time to do them in the lecture. They're not really designed for you to do in the lecture. It's more for you to think about and consolidate your learning after the lecture. So people will either make notes on paper or they'll annotate notes that they already have. So lecturers release lecture notes. Actually, something that I really like about Warwick is that they give like pre-printed lecture notes for modules, and they cost £1, which if you think about the amount of printing, I mean, you're getting a 70-page book essentially for £1, which is absolutely worth it. So you can annotate the lecture notes like that if you prefer, but I really would recommend attending the lectures and using the notes, because sometimes lecturers will go into more depth in lectures, or they'll talk about things more or less depending on what they enjoy, and that can really give you a good insight into kind of what areas might be more common on exams and that kind of thing. And then reading the lecture notes is really important because it's a more concise, clearer explanation I tend to find of the material, and also it's something that you can look back on whenever, whereas I find with my notes sometimes I make mistakes while I'm writing, and it's always nice to look back on the lecture notes just to check. So another thing that lecturers will do is offer alternative proofs in lectures, whereas in the lecture notes they'll have just a different proof completely. The proofs obviously will prove the same thing, but you can learn lots of different things from different proofs. So this is why I would continue going to lectures and reading the lecture notes. Now, when you read the lecture notes, it's up to you. Some people will just leave it for revision. Some people will use them while they're doing their assignment, which is what I do. I'll read the lecture notes relevant to the assignment while I'm doing the assignment. And then some people, obviously, as I said, will actually have it in front of them as they're doing the lectures. So that's kind of an overview of lectures. Now, this isn't the only way that you can learn, and I don't know much about many other methods, so I do have seminars as a maths student. I have actually taken modules where we have seminars, such as my economics module, so that's not in the maths department, but we have seminars for that. And essentially what that is we used to get given a problem sheet based on the lecture content that we'd learnt that week, and there'd be a seminar leader who was usually a student or a postgraduate or someone who is able to help you essentially. And those are so useful because you really learn the content from doing questions, because in lectures you don't really get to do questions or see many examples, and this is how you apply your learning. So I find seminars really helpful, and I would encourage you all to attend them if you get the chance to. The other thing I've done is workshop kind of things. So I do an IATL module. These are actually modules that anyone can take from any degree, and they are interdisciplinary modules. So it's not maths related, but the beauty of it is that I can bring maths into it, and no matter what subject you can bring that into the IATL module. So for that, we kind of have these workshop-based things where we do group work, and then we bring our group work to the main kind of event, and we share our group work, and we get to talk to different guest speakers and stuff like that. So that's another way that you can do your learning. Now, the final way, which I think is only for math students, is, and I don't know if they do this anymore, is in first year we had analysis classes. So this is classes like you would think for your A-levels, where you would actually have a teacher come in and they would teach you the content. So there was also lectures for this, but all of the content was taught in those analysis classes too. What would happen in those classes was there would be a TA, and they would kind of lecture the material to you, and then eventually you would get given your homework for the week, and you would have that time left over to start working on your homework, and there would be also second and third years available to help you with that if you were getting stuck. So that was actually a really nice experience to help bridge the gap, because I think from my personal experience, analysis is the biggest difference between A-level maths and university maths, because it's just a whole new style of learning maths. So really focused on proving things, learning things definition, rather than calculating things like you would have done in your A-levels. So that's all there to help you kind of bridge the gap. So I really would recommend, if you guys are having online learning at the moment and your teachers are giving you pre-recorded videos to watch at home, then I would suggest pressing play on those videos and then trying to keep up making notes. And I think that is the best practice you can get for lectures, since lectures, they don't stop for you. They don't stop for anyone really. So they're just going to keep going. You need to find a way to note take in such a way that you're not missing out on content. Now, I do want to say, however, that most of the lectures are recorded. So if you do find yourself struggling to keep up, what you can do is just go home and re-watch the recording of the lecture. However, not all lectures are recorded, so you do need to be aware that sometimes you will have to rely on your own note-taking, or eventually you will have friends on your course and you can ask them. So the second part of university learning that's different is actually learning at home. Now, after A-levels, I used to maybe sit and work at a school for a little bit when it came closer to my exam time, but really what I do was go home, and if I had homework I'd do that, and that was it. You can't do that at university. You really need to consolidate your learning. Do the problem sheets if you can. Do the assignments, definitely. Assignments count for credit now. Some of them will actually be a decent amount of your degree. So, for example, one of the modules I'm doing at the moment has 15% assignment and 85% exam. So that 15% can actually be the difference of a grade. The thing that I would say though is, for the maths department at the moment, they have this policy where if you have, let's say you do 5 assignments across a module, then they will take your scores from the best 4 assignments. So there is that kind of leeway if you are feeling unwell, or you just really don't understand the content one week, something like that. So it's not strict assignments where you have to do really, really consistently well every time, but I really would use them as an opportunity and take them seriously, because this is the best way to kind of get your head around the content. And honestly, in lectures, I sit there and I don't know what's going on. But when I sit down and do the assignments, I actually start to understand why we were doing the content that we were doing and how I can apply my learning from the lectures into actual, matters as we would think of it. So doing problems. So other things that you get at university is coursework. Some of you might be really used to this. So maybe writing essays or doing projects or stuff like that. Now, there isn't much to say. It's going to be the same as your A-levels. You do have to learn how to do things like referencing properly and stuff like that. But if you've done an EPQ, then I think it's really, really good practice. You learn how to do those referencing. You learn how to manage your own time. You learn how to kind of look after the work that you need to do. Now, with your EPQ, actually, you might have had more guidance from teachers. With university, however, you don't really get that help. So in second year, we currently have a maths module that's called second year essay. I don't know how much guidance we're supposed to get, but we haven't really got that much guidance. We've just been told to write an essay. There are some documents available, but you don't really have anyone other than your tutor maybe to speak to about it. And your tutors are the people who are marking it. So at least my tutor has said that they can't really help us too much, because then, they're marking our things. So it's not really fair. So it's more about learning how to learn yourself, learning how to manage your time yourself, manage and organize yourself. So they're really good life skills, and I think that's something that will kind of help you in later life when you get a job, because in a job you have to do your work. No one's gonna sit there and say, you have a deadline in 3 days, unless you get a secretary or something. But most of the time you're going to have to manage yourself, and this is a really good way to learn it. And this is why I think university is really valuable. Not only do you gain insight into your subject in more depth and learn from some of the people who are really big names in the field or have done amazing research in the field. So you really do get to learn from people who truly understand and love the subject, but you also learn loads of skills that you can transfer into jobs and later life in general, which can be really useful. So the final category I wanted to talk about was living alone. Now, I think this one you don't have to worry about as much until you finish your A-level. The next thing I want to talk about is living alone, which is probably the scariest part of university. I think a lot of people won't have lived alone before. I know I hadn't lived alone before, so it was the first time I got the chance to, have to cook for myself, which it turns out I really enjoy, but some people don't. My roommates, my housemate's been cooking pasta for 2 years now, because that's all he knows how to cook. Actually, he did learn how to cook chicken chow mein as well now, so it's 50-50 on each. But it's really different. You do sometimes even have to clean for yourself. Some people will have cleaners, but generally at Warwick you don't get people cleaning your room. You do get people sometimes cleaning your bathroom, but when you move out of first year accommodation, unless you personally want a cleaner in your house, it's unlikely that someone will be cleaning your house, your kitchen, your bathroom, your bedroom. You have to do that. You have to come home, you have to cook for yourself. I would really suggest talking to your parents. This is really where family can help, because your family knows what it's like to live by themselves. Why don't you ask your parents over the summer, can you teach me how to cook this, or can you teach me how to cook that? And if there is that one thing that you always look forward to coming home to eating, then I would really recommend asking your parents, can you either cook some for me and freeze it and I'll defrost it at university and eat it, or can you teach me myself how to cook it? So some of you will be thinking about student jobs. Have a look around Warwick area, there's lots of jobs available. There's lots of kind of shops in Coventry or Leamington, or just generally around. So in Canley too, Canley is very close to the university. We have Cannon Park Shopping Centre, so there's going to be some jobs available there. There's also jobs available on campus. So just to summarise everything that I've said, you really want to get used to this idea of lectures. So doing practice lectures, even practicing taking notes with videos, to try to practice your note taking. And then as for moving out, then ask your family for food tips, ask them to teach you how to clean things if you think that's something they struggle with, and just general ask for help, ask people you know, and feel free to come and ask me questions. My last video had a lot of really good feedback, and I'm really glad it helped you guys, so I hope that this one will also be really helpful to you guys. Now, I really wish that you guys would come forward and tell me, what do you want to hear? I'm trying to guess right now what kind of things people coming into university would like to hear about, but of course your university experience is so different to me going from A-levels to university, because your whole A-levels has been defined by COVID, unfortunately. So I really want to try and help. So if you have anything that you want to find out about, whether it's go into more detail on your course, go into more detail on your student jobs or something like that, just leave it in the comment section on either YouTube or on our Warwick, and I will do my very best to make a video on that, or make a video on bits that people want. So I really hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you next month.